Hey everyone, today I want to pose a question to you regarding Counter-Strike's map pool. Is there too little variation? Do good competitive maps have to be of the 4-square layout? And by the way, does competitive map necessarily mean bomb defusal? A friend of mine from the channel ESCalation Maps recently uploaded a video discussing this topic, and to everyone who understands German I would recommend watching the original video. For everyone else, I will summon it up now. ESCalation joined a livestream in which several maps of the MapCore mapping contest were being playtested. The stream was hosted by the War Owl, someone who I assume does not need an introduction. And confronted with the map CS off time, the good War Owl reacted surprised, even asking if hostage rescue maps are allowed in the contest, which of course they are. One of War Owl's teammates asked if CS off time is a fun or competitive map. ESCalation responded to that question in the live chat with "Every map should be fun, regardless of being competitive or not," and the War Owl and his team of course agreed. And that's sort of a segue into today's topic. The maps that I personally had the most fun with are not necessarily competitive maps in the modern sense, because my fondest memories of Counter-Strike go back to 1.6, 1.5 and earlier. Back then we played every map available to us on LAN parties. Serious 5-on-5 matches on CS Militia and Assault were no uncommon thing. Yes, these types of maps do not fit the playstyle that we see on the big stages where professional teams face off today, but still I find the scenario very thrilling. Maybe just because for the reason that the map is unbalanced and favors one team, making it even more into an achievement when you manage to overpower the favored team with pure skill, tactics or luck. After the bomb defuse game mode was introduced to Counter-Strike, it quickly became a favorite amongst fans and the slowly growing competitive scene. The original CS maps were not feasible for competitive play due to the hostages adding a very unpredictable element to the game. They got stuck on edges or just stopped walking. They tried to fix that in CSGO, but I assume the name of hostage rescue is irreversibly damaged, even though it turned more into a capture the flag game after the update. CTs now have to only rescue one hostage that they can carry around with them, so the really unpredictable element of the hostage AI is gone. Also gone is the possibility of using hostages as human shields and losing money with stray bullets hitting them. So could CS maps be played in a serious competitive setting? Maybe, with having old CS maps being reworked and new ones being created to fit a more balanced and competitive playstyle. Many maps like Office or even worse Assault have hostages all in one location or very close to each other, meaning that defending them is a lot easier than defending bomb sites on regular DE maps. It is comparable to how it is on the T side when you play a map with only one bomb site. I mean, I love playing CS Office, but hands down, the map is not very balanced. It's a fun challenge, but for an ESL tournament, practically useless. But let us go back to diffuse maps. The most popular ones that are being played today are maps that have been proven themselves over the course of time, with Dust 2 being probably the most prominent example. Back when Dust 2 was made, it was not made with a specific design philosophy in mind. It was a lucky coincidence that it turned out so good. Back then, map creation was a trial and error approach a lot of times, simply because the proven 4-square layout was not known yet, and also most people mapping for Counter-Strike about 20 years ago were not experienced with the game, let alone the bomb defuse mode. And even a few years into Counter-Strike's existence, this could be noticed, but over time maps more and more drew from the lessons learned on Dust 2. A simplistic layout with rather simple map geometry, and of course interactive elements have almost completely disappeared. I'm not talking about the CS beta experiments with vehicles, I'm talking about things like functional elevators. Even CSGO remakes of classic maps that incorporated elevators, the mappers decide to replace them. The most interactive elements on maps nowadays may be the air vents and doors. Even simpler things like usable light switches are things we do not see in modern Counter-Strike anymore. And here we run into a little innovation issue. Over the course of time, Counter-Strike has been whittled down to one core game mode and a rather small core map pool. And just recently Valve removed a lot of maps that were admittedly not that popular, but still I see no reason to remove them. They were still being played and had their place in, for example, Deathmatch. In the early days of Counter-Strike we saw experiments with different game modes, such as Assassination, a type of map that I would love to see return, or maps with 3 bomb sites, something that for the record still works in Global Offensive, just nobody seems to be willing to try and create a map that applies the 3 bomb site layout in a well thought out way. I am aware that it would be a hell of a challenge to create a properly balanced map, but I bet some of the mappers out there could master the challenge. I would also love to see professional teams confronted with that, to see how they come up with tactics for this new situation. Generally, I would like to see more unusual maps being played. In my opinion, CS insertion was a really cool approach, not perfectly executed, but I would like to see this idea being expanded upon. DE Canals was an interesting experiment by Valve, confronting the community with a new type of map design that somehow reminded me of the style of a lot of old 1.6 and cut condition 0 maps. Big open spaces connected by narrow corridors and courtyards, even taking verticality into the equation. A design choice that I found to be interesting. I'm aware that we probably won't see maps like Canals or similar ones in big tournaments due to the radical different design, unless of course Valve forces them in, something that they might do, confronting the player base with more complex maps that take a longer time to master. And looking at the recent changes made to the map, that becomes more possible in the long run. They are still working on refining the map and making it more viable for competitive play, but in its current form it is of course not perfect and spawns some ambush tactics I haven't seen in a while. So it will take some time and maybe a little force until this map becomes acceptable to a wider audience. But even maps that follow a more classical layout, not relying on extravagant structures and close quarter combat that much like Overpass, they seem to not be accepted at first. But why? Is it simply a dislike of learning new things or sticking to what you know? Or is it Valve's fault for not introducing new stuff at a fast enough rate? Every once in a while we see new maps being played by a larger audience when an operation comes out. But when is the last time a community-made map made it into the competitive selection? For most of them you need to go back even further than Counter-Strike 1.5. Cache is a big exception here. What happened to the big map pool that previous Counter-Strike games had? I would like to see a wider variety of maps with different designs again. I remember watching competitive matches on maps like DE Comrade, a map which's layout is absolutely feasible for competitive play and with a few tweaks could be utilized in CSGO. Or does anyone remember DE Crown, a CSGO map that layout-wise is kind of a big circle, especially made with competitive play in mind. A map with a non-standard layout designed by FM Pone, one of the creators of the modern version of Cache. We got so much choice, and yet everyone is still running around DDoS 2. I guess what I want to say is, seeing matches carried out on the same handful of maps over and over again, with one of them being totally overrepresented, gets a little dull after a while. A little fresh air and a slight mix-up may be a good thing for CSGO. This is just an assumption, but I think that the reliance on matchmaking and the relegation of the server browser to the last ranks has massively torn down the amount of community maps being played. CSGO players are just not being exposed to custom maps anymore. The workshop is filled with great content, but since the server browser is not the storefront anymore, it hardly ever happens that you see a server with a map that you've never heard before and you just join out of curiosity. What do you think about it? Do you think CSGO's current map pool is fine? Do you prefer a small but balanced selection or a wider one? Do you think Counter-Strike would benefit from something like a Workshop Wednesday, where the top 5 maps of every last week or month are being hosted and prominently featured? That way, great creations could get some real exposure and maybe make it into the standard lineup of maps. And I know, this little thing here I shared on Twitter a few days ago is a little hyperbolic. But come on, you know it's true. In the upper right corner of the video, you can cast a vote. Do you think that it is possible to make the Hostage Rescue mode in CSGO a valid game mode for competitive play? Please cast your vote. And generally, share your thoughts on today's topic in the comment section down below. I'm really curious, and if you think I'm wrong, tell me why. And in case you enjoyed this video, maybe check out some of our other ones, like the cut content of Counter-Strike, where we explored the dropped proposal of female player models for CSGO just recently. So see you guys next time. Till then, have a nice day and as always, goodbye and guten Tag.